And hello, everybody. Aloha, Tony. How's it going, bud? Thank you for coming today. Oh man, we got some really exciting stuff today. Just to get started, we're not going to wait. We are just going to jump right into it today because we got a lot to get going. For new members, I am Joe Workman. I am the founder of Weaver Space, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Hopefully, you're going to enjoy today's talk. And today, what we're going to be talking about is Git. Now, it's kind of an advanced subject for most web designers and web developers, because it definitely is. We're going to get down into some advanced stuff. We're going to get into some coding today. We're going to be getting into command line and all kinds of crazy stuff. So now I do have to say that this is my workflow. I'll try to point out a little bit where maybe you could do some things a little bit easier, or how your situation with your web host might be a little bit different. Because I manage all my web servers from command line. So I'm going to be diving into some really techie stuff. I don't have any web interface to manage my web servers. I do everything from the server on command line. So where I can, I will mention how your host hopefully does things a little bit easier for you. Hey, Martin. Hey, Gunter. Thanks for joining in today. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm a little nervous because we have a lot of stuff to do today. Now, I do have to premise, basically what I did was, over this weekend, I set up a completely new server. I just wanted to, for myself, I wanted to set up actually a new web server that had like all the latest versions of everything. And basically what I thought is, well, instead of, me setting up all this, Git web deployment stuff, before, I was actually going to do it live today. So we're actually going to be doing a completely live from scratch, Git Hook deployment of a website, a very simple website, from scratch. So I haven't done any setup for this. Well, I've done a little bit, right? I have a couple scripts that I'm utilizing and whatnot, but for the most part, we're starting from scratch today. And I'm going to give you a little bit overview of how to maybe use Git a little bit, and some benefits that you might like with it, and some gotchas. So without further ado, let's jump on in. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And there we go. Okay. So got a new streaming setup. I thought I'd try something new today. Got like me over here on the side and all the desktop over there. And I don't know, trying something new. Try to constant improvement. Hey, Peter, thanks for joining in today. Let me move the live chat off the screen, actually. Let's move that over there. Okay. So first thing we want to do is, actually, you know what? Let me back off a little bit. So one thing I want to talk about a little bit is, what is Git? Okay. So Git is a version control system. Now me and Greg did a podcast. It was 3 or 4 weeks ago. Check it over on weaverradio.com. It was episode 28. Okay. And in that show, we talked about basically what I'm going to be showing you today. And essentially people, wanted to see the video version of that podcast show because it obviously is a very visual thing. So that's what spurred all of today. But what is Git? It is essentially a version control system that now it's text-based. So you can basically, if you publish a website, you can easily roll back to, like, you could see all your various versions that you've deployed. You can easily roll back to a previous version, stuff like that. So it's very easy. Now, from a developer standpoint, we use it to modify code files, and that's the origins of Git, right? It's for like development, actually, writing code for apps and websites and stuff like that. And it's beneficial for us developers because we can see exactly what lines changed, and maybe we can merge some stuff together from an old version to the new version, and you do all kinds of stuff. Now, I'm not going to dive into any of that today. And to be honest, I don't think any of that is really relevant to you guys as just designers who want to maybe version control and tag particular moments in history, and maybe you want to easily roll back to different states. Okay. We're going to look at the raw basics of Git today. I'm not going to go into any sort of advanced, like how you can do diffs between files and merges, and not going to do any of that. And to be honest, even for myself, I use Git to deploy my websites, but I never really use those features of Git on my websites at all, like not at all. I use it in my day-to-day development when I'm writing apps and stacks and stuff like that, but not for website development. So Git is just, again, it's a decentralized system of managing your code base, in this case, a website. Okay. And I say decentralized because what it is you can run Git on your server, and all of our Macs have Git installed by default. So that's cool. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up a online account. Today, I'm going to be using GitLab, gitlab.com. Now, I do most of my stuff on GitHub, but to be honest, I kind of wanted to test out GitLab. So I'm going to be moving some of my projects over to GitLab, mostly just to test it out. It's a new kind of it's been around for a few years, but it's kind of the new hot service, right? And it looks nice. So I'm going to be setting up a new repository on GitLab today. And we'll be integrating that. And for those of you who might want to use GitHub, GitHub is huge. I'll probably show you maybe how to set up like the Git Hook stuff in one of my GitHub accounts when we do all the deployments. So there we are. I just want to give you a quick overview of what Git is, what you can use it for. And now let's dive in and actually get some work done. Okay. So to start off, as I said, I haven't done anything. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go over to gitlab.com right now. And where's my Safari window? Oh, desktop. Okay. Here we go. I am going to go to GitLab. And what I'm going to do is I already have some projects set up here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a completely new project. Okay. Whoops. Darn gestures. Okay. I'm going to set up a new project. And what I like to do is I call the name of my project when I'm doing it for websites, right? It's the name of the actual domain. So right now we're going to be testing a website or publishing a website called aspecthq.com. Okay. So that's the name of my project. It's the name of the domain. There's no confusion on what the heck this is. It is for aspecthq.com because that's the website we're going to be working on today. And I'm going to say create project. Boom. Okay. So we're kind of done on that side. Fun times. Now what we need to do is we need to clone this repository, locally on our Mac. Okay. Now I use a app called Tower. I'm going to just say I think it's Get Tower. GetTower.com. Oh, Git Tower. Git. Yes. I use this software. Whoa, get started. It's free? Really? Oh, wow. That's crazy. That must be new because Tower is probably the best Git client I think out there. It's kind of crazy. It's free now. What the heck? I spent like $50 on it or something like that. Oh, it's yearly now. Okay. I think I use the basic license. Maybe I'm not sure what you can get with the free package, but anyway, Tower is an amazing app. It probably is a little bit more. I'll be honest. It's probably a little bit more than some of you might need. I used to use an app called Gitbox before I got really good at version control in Git. So take a look at Gitbox. It's a little dated. It's on the App Store. It hasn't been updated in quite a while, but I know it still works and it covers all the basics. Maybe after we get everything working today, if I have time, maybe I'll load it up in Gitbox and we can kind of see how things are. But for right now, for today, I'm going to be using Tower. I didn't have I was going to use Gitbox today to show you how everything works, but I didn't have time to set it all up and kind of relearn how Gitbox works. So inside Tower, what's kind of cool is you can I've already integrated it with GitLab. Okay, so I already logged in, and if you notice, the repository that I just created on GitLab is there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say clone, and I'm going to select a different destination here. Yeah, that's fine. Let's just put it right there. Okay, so I'm going to say clone. Did that work? Let's go to Finder. Where's my development? data development aspect. There it is. Okay, so here's the folder. Now anything I put inside this folder will now be version controlled. And see, we have here in my repositories, we have aspecthq.com. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's just minify some of these windows. And I have already created a very, 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 very simple project that we're going to publish to aspecthq.com. So if we just preview this, just a really simple web page. That's it. This is what we're going to be working on right now. So what I can do is, let's just go ahead and let's go to the publishing setup. I haven't even done this yet. Let's see, HTTPS. Actually, we're going to do configure manually. And what we're going to do is, instead of FTP, it's going to be local folder. We're going to choose the folder. We're going to choose it from the folder that we have our development, aspecthq.com. Okay, boom, boom, there we go. Okay, so here we go. Remember, that is the folder where I cloned the Git repository from, right? So again, we cloned the Git repository of this folder. I'm going to publish to that folder. We're not publishing it to the server. We're exporting it. And basically with RapidWeaver, let's just say local. Call that local. The address is https www.aspecthq.com. Okay, I don't want to back it up right now. Okay, and we're gonna, that's it. Okay, cool. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and publish. Drum roll, please. The joys of publishing locally is that it's lightning fast. Okay, that's really all we need to do in RapidWeaver, right? I set up the publishing destination. We published it locally, and if we go back into here, we notice inside that folder, I now have my website, right? I have the sitemap, I have the index file, all that jazz. Here's my website. Cool. So now what do we do? Let's go into Tower. And what you'll notice is inside Tower, or whatever your Git client of choice is, you'll notice that it found all these files. Now it has question marks here because it doesn't know what these files are, right? It's like, I have no clue what these files are. They're new. So what we need to do is, in Git, what we need to do is we need to stage these files, right? So we stage the commit. So right now, what you can do is if you wanted to just save each one, you can click on each one, or you could just say stage all, right? So what this is going to do is I'm going to say, and then for every time you save or commit, it's called a commit. Whenever you commit something into a repository, you have to type in a message, right? So make sure this is something for you, right? All this is for you. So, right, this one's probably going to just be something simple like initial commit. Okay. But you need to be able to make notes so that when you refer to these later on, okay, you know exactly what you did, right? So, and you could put, so the actual title of the commit, I think it can only be like 50 characters or something like that. But this detailed description, if you really want to, detail out what changes you made and whatnot, you can detail it all out here, okay? But these commits are very useful because later on, if you need to revert to something, you need to be able to look at your history and know what you did to know what point you need to go back to, right? So I'm not going to add any detailed description here. I'll admit I don't add detailed description too often. Mostly my title's enough. I put in enough information in the title to let me know what I need. Now, so we've committed that, and this is all blank because we have now no changes. So we need, if we go here to master, we'll see that here is my commit, right? So here's my initial commit. And here's everything that we did in that commit, and it has a bunch of added files. Okay. Now what I need to do is I need to save this. Right now, all of these changes are only on my local Mac. Okay. But remember, we created that repository online on GitLab. So we need to push that, and that's exactly what it's called. It's called a push. We need to push all those changes up to GitLab. Let's go ahead and click this little arrow. And it's saying, because this is the first time I'm ever actually publishing something, it says, do you want to publish this branch? Say yes. And what it's doing right now is it is connecting to GitLab. It's pushing all those changes up. And while it's doing that, let's go ahead and open up a new Safari window. Oops. Let's refresh. And boom. So I refreshed this. And if we look, we have all of our files here online, and we now have our very first commit inside Git. Exciting. Very, very cool. Okay. So let's just continue our quick tutorial of Git really quick. Go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and bring back up our Rapweaver project. And let's just add a little bit of content here. Okay, I'm going to go to foundation, paragraph. Okay. Okay. Just going to do that. And then I'm going to publish those changes locally. Okay, cool. So now what we're going to do, if we go back to Tower. Now, if we go back to Tower, we'll see in the working copy, we have 3. And that's because it's noticed that we have changes now. Okay, if you see it has these little M's, that means that file was modified. Okay, and if you click on it, you can see actually the modifications. So this CSS file, for some reason, there was an errant space added. And the index.html, you can actually see all the changes that happened. Now, chances are we really don't care because we just want our site to look good, and what we see in Rapweaver is what we get, right? So, and then we have our sitemap, which basically changes the modification date when the page was modified, right? So what we could do is we could just say, added caption to title, something like that, right? And we can commit that. And if you look at master, it says it has this little head and little arrow. And what that means is that, hey, I have one push that I need to push something up to the server. We're not in sync with the server. So what I'm going to go ahead and push that. And if we go back to the server, where is Safari? Boom. Okay, we go back to Safari. And if we refresh, okay, well, we won't see, we didn't add any new files, but all the changes are now synced on GitLab. So really cool stuff there. Okay. Now, what are some things before I start diving into setting all the deployments and all that fun stuff? What are some stuff that we shouldn't be adding? What are some stuff we shouldn't be adding to our Git repositories? Git is primarily a text-based thing, right? So I personally wouldn't like it. It doesn't handle really large files very well. Okay, like video files essentially, or really, really large images. Probably not a great idea. Okay. So like if you're using Rapweaver's resources, you might want to rethink that if you want to use this Git deployment and you have like video files and stuff like that and unoptimized images, right? So you're going to want to make sure that, images are fine, drag and drop images in Rapweaver, or if you optimize your images and put them in the resources, that's okay. I would definitely stay away from video files unless they're like really small video files, like less than a meg or something like that, right? Outside of those, I would definitely consider, if you want to do videos and self-host those, actually create a subdomain or another folder on your server that you warehouse and just reference those. Okay. Now there are some other things inside Git. Actually, I just thought about this. There are some files that you might want to ignore. Okay. So inside ignores. Okay. There are open in editor, but where did it open? Oh, there it goes. Okay. So in Git, you can tell it to, if you see a file that's named this, ignore it and don't try to version control it. Okay. Some very common ones that I recommend you do is .ds underscore, I think it's store. Oops. Okay. If those are pretty much like common like Mac files, right? You'll see those in a Mac file system. Another thing you might want to ignore is something like error underscore log. That is a PHP. A lot of times PHP if it has an error on the server, it'll create this log file. And you don't want to version control those log files. You don't want Git to think that that's a file you care about. So basically, you're going to put in a bunch of files in here. Now, if you wanted to, they're kind of what got me onto this. Oh, shoot, I'm not sharing my screen. Hold on. Boom. Bad Joe. Okay. Sorry. Let me back up a little bit. Here, let me clean up some of these windows. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and back into I'm in Tower right now. But in any Git client, you can set up what's something called a Git Ignore. And I'm going to open that inside the editor here. And basically what you do is it's just a plain text file that you put in files that you want to ignore. Okay. Now let's say, for example, I wanted to manually have a warehouse folder on my site, on my server. What I could do is, let's say I tend to use a folder called Depot, right? What you could do is you would put the name of that folder in this Git Ignore file, so that when Git saw it on the server, it doesn't matter what you throw into that Depot folder, Git will just ignore it. Okay, so this Git Ignore thing is very important. And I think the DS store, I think it's all caps actually. Hold on. Right? Is it DS? Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, so it's DS_store. So we want to definitely ignore DS_store. I recommend you ignore error_log. Again, that's the PHP files. So if PHP adds an error log in your server, Git on the server is just going to ignore it. And then Depot, that's going to be our folder that we can utilize for warehousing. Now, if you're a CMS user, total CMS, right, you're going to want to do CMS_data as well. And if you're in the future, if you're watching this in the future, you'll use tcms data because that is the CMS folder for total CMS 2. Okay. So really good tips. You want to make sure you ignore those, because Git's just going to ignore all that stuff on the server, and you can manage it manually all you want. Okay. It's good stuff there. Here, I'll actually save that. And if we go to working copy, it's see that we added a Git Ignore file. So we just say add and ignore some stuff. Okay, and we're going to push that up. Cool. Okie dokie. So now for the fun part. I kind of had a lot of that baked up. Obviously, cloning repositories, I do that a lot. So that was really good. We're going to set up the Git Hook stuff now. So let's talk about how all of this works. So this is how the entire workflow works for using Git to deploy your website. You do everything that we just did. You make your changes, you publish it into a local folder, and then inside your Git client, you save those changes, you type in your Git message, and you push. Okay, now when you push to the server, this is now what we're going to start automating. Okay, it pushes it up to gitlab.com. What we're going to set up right now is on gitlab.com. It has something called, I think they call it integrations actually. The technical term is called a Git Hook, okay, or a webhook. And what that does is we can put in a URL into our repository on GitLab that says, whenever we push something to you, go ahead and ping this URL. So we're going to give it a URL, okay? And what that URL is a file that we're going to put on our server, okay? And basically what that's going to do is whenever GitLab pings that URL on our server, that URL, it's going to be some PHP, is going to say, hey, I know that GitLab just pinged me. That means I need to go pull new data. So at that point, GitLab pings our server gets the message from GitLab and says, oh, thanks. That must mean you have new stuff for me. And the server is then going to pull that data down. Does that make sense? Okay, so again, GitLab sends the URL request. On our server, we're going to have some really cool code that gets that request from GitLab and says, hey, cool, I got new stuff. I'm going to pull it down with a git command. Now, obviously, hopefully, your host has Git. A lot of decent hosts will have Git installed, and I think you can even configure inside cPanel. I'm pretty sure I listened to the episode with Greg. Obviously, Greg runs Chili Dog Hosting, and I know all of this works on his services as well. So, yeah. So right now, what we're gonna do is let's go and jump back into GitLab. Okay. How come I have to open up a new window? Interesting. Annoying. Okay. So inside GitLab, I'm inside my aspecthq.com. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to settings, integrations. Okay. And inside here, we have push events. Okay. This is going to be a URL that this is actually going to pull down. Okay. This is the URL that we're going to hit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to create this URL doesn't exist yet, but we're going to create it. We're going to do aspecthq.com/deploy.php. Okay. So this deploy.php file does not exist on the server yet, but we're going to create it in a minute. But I just want to get this all set up. So here, whenever we push to GitLab now, once I save this, let's say add webhook. Can't blur the valid URL. Oh, see, I should have tested this beforehand. See, this is where it's going to bite me. Okay, we have to give it a secret token, I believe. Hold on one second. Can't have a blank URL where the valid URL push event branch filter is not a valid branch name. Hold on. Click on that. Hold on. Okay, we're gonna. Boom. Fun stuff. Okay, let's figure this out. I assume this was going to be as simple as it was with GitHub. It's different. Just reading through these, glance through these docs. Webhooks are user-defined HTTP callbacks. Fun times. Maybe it's the SSL verification. Or I'm going to turn off SSL verification. I just wanted just to ping that. Let's say add webhook. Damn. URL can't be blank. It wasn't blank. Okay. Webhooks are user-defined HTTP callbacks. Yes, I know what a webhook is. Use cases. You can integrate webhooks endpoints. If you are writing your own web server that will receive webhooks, keep in mind the following things. Your endpoint should receive HTTP responses as fast as possible. If you wait too long, GitLab will decide to retry failure. Yes. Should always return a valid HTTP response. If you do not, GitLab, okay, that's fine. Ignores HTTP status code returned by your endpoint. Fun times, fun times. Okay. Instead of wasting time trying to figure out what we're going to do and figuring this out, we're going to go over to GitHub. Since it's a system that I already know how to use, we're going to go ahead and going live. Fun times. Can I just add a new remote repository here? Okay. What I'm going to set up really quick is a new repository here. aspecthq.com, and we'll just make it public for now. Private. Okay, great repository. I'm going to do the same thing we did at the very beginning, because I just want this to work really quick. Fun times. Go over here. We're going to clone this. We'll just clone it to the home folder. That's fine. Okay. Open. Show it in Finder. Fun times. We're going to go to development. I'm just going to copy the data that's in here. We're going to go into here. Copy that into there. All right, cool. And we're going to stage all of these. And we're going to say initial, save it, publish it up to GitHub. Boom. Okay. So now we are. Okay, let's refresh this. Boom. Excellent. So now I can go into. Sorry about that. So what I did really quick was I've just basically replicated everything that we just did earlier. Yeah, so. Oh, what? GitHub services has been deprecated. Oh, what? Oh, webhooks. Here. Add a webhook. Okay, cool. Here we go. So here we go. Now inside GitHub, we're going to go to Webhooks and you paste in the URL. So we're going to put in our URL. /deploy.php. And we're just going to, I'm going to do application JSON because that's what, no, we're going to do Xform. Yeah, we're going to do that. Secret, just do my secret. Okay. And here we're going to do on the push event. So whenever we push to GitHub, it will automatically ping that URL. So you can say add webhook, not now. Had an error because that file doesn't exist yet. Okay. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to create that file. So what we're going to do is on here, I already have a set of files that I use, and here it is. So we're going to create this deploy.php file really quick. Let's review it. Okay. So here we have very simple PHP. We say if the request is post. So to kind of back up a little bit, there are multiple types of HTTP requests. And all Git hooks are a post request. That means even if you hit this URL via the browser, it doesn't matter because that's a GET request. This is a special type of request that's kind of programmery, right? It's basically like when forms get submitted and stuff like that. It's a different type of request. It's not just something like putting a URL in the browser window. Okay. So this is a post request that gets sent to this deploy PHP, and we want to make sure that it's only a post request so that people just can't hit this URL and then, it's going to trigger our script all the time, which shouldn't really bother anything because it's just going to pull. If there's no changes, it doesn't pull anything. But we should just be thorough, and we're going to verify that this is a post request. And at that point, what we're going to do is we're going to look for a file. We're going to say the file that I'm going to look for is home jworkman deploy hooks aspecthq.com/deploy. If that file, and then basically what we're going to do is we're just going to create that file, and we're going to send the data that GitHub sent us. We're going to print it inside of the file. Okay. So that's all this does. So that request, all it does is GitHub will ping this deploy PHP file. And then at that point, it's going to, if it gets pinged, it's going to create a file. And that's all it does. Just creates a file. Then, okay, then this is kind of where some techie geeky stuff happens. We're going to have a cron job, which is a routine scheduled job that looks for that file. We can run that job every minute, every 5 minutes, however you want. Okay. So we're going to run that job every, I normally do every 5 minutes. And if that file exists, at that point, we're going to then initiate the pull. Okay. Now the reason we have to do it that way is you cannot execute shell commands. Okay. You cannot execute git pulls from within a PHP script. It's just security warnings. You just can't do it. It's not recommended at all. So every host that's worth their weight in anything will not allow you to do that, because that's huge security holes for hackers and all that jazz, right? So the PHP is just going to create a file, and then we have a shell script here. This is the shell script that I use, and basically what we do is inside this shell script, this is the script that we're going to use to schedule, and it's going to run every X number of minutes, however often you want. And it's going to look for the file. If the file exists, it basically renames the file. It appends a date timestamp, just so if we ever wanted to look at it in the future, how many times everything happened and whatnot. You could probably delete it if you wanted to. I just move it. Then basically what I do is I cd into my website directory. Then I do a git reset, which basically means it will, if there are any changes on the server, in theory, there shouldn't be any changes. It's going to reset back to the reverted version, or the version that it thinks it should be. And then it's going to do a pull, and it's going to pull the data from our server. Okay. Cool. So good stuff there. So let's go ahead and start doing that. So what I can do is I'm just going to say reveal in Finder. And what I can do is I'm going to take this deploy.php file. I'm going to copy it into this directory. Okay. So now we have a deploy.php file. And that's all we need for now. We're going to bring up Tower. And I'm going to commit this deploy script. And I'm going to push that up to GitHub. Okay. Now the fun starts. We're going to go on our server. And okay, so this is where we get into the really geeky part of today. Because as I said early on, I manage my web servers from terminal. This is how I manage my web servers. From a terminal, from command line. And yes, it's geeky. You guys hopefully have a great cPanel and some great admin interface that lets you do everything that I'm about to do from command line. But hopefully maybe you'll learn a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to go into my directory, which is websites aspecthq.com. Okay. And fun times. Actually, an interesting thing here is that I now need to, actually, I'm going to remove that index file because that was just me testing that the domain actually worked. Okay. So now I'm inside my aspecthq.com folder, and there are no files in that directory. This command, I'm not going to explain every command that I run, but there are no files in this folder. Now, what we need to do is we need to do an initial pull from GitHub, okay, to get all of this working. Now, this is interesting. I wasn't planning on doing this today, but now that I switched to GitHub, it's probably best for your benefit, is I need to set up authentication with my server and GitHub, okay? So fun times. Damn it, Safari does not want to keep opening my window. Okay. Wait, we're going to close out GitLab. That was a fun experiment for a few minutes. Okay. So inside let me back up now a little bit. So what there is if you're all probably familiar with something called SFTP, right? Secure File Transfer Protocol. Okay. Now that is piggybacks on something called SSH, which is Secure Shell. It's actually how I'm connected to my server right now. It allows you to remote, connect to things. Okay. Now SSH is a strong, secure industry standard across the entire world for communication between devices. Okay. It used to, if you want to go old school, it used to be something called Telnet, highly insecure. Telnet is the same thing as like FTP, kind of, if you're comparing, SSH is to FTP as Telnet is to FTP. Okay. Telnet and FTP suck. SSH and SFTP rock. Okay. So SSH has something called keys. And what's kind of interesting is that what you can do is you can set up keys on various devices. So I have keys set up on my Mac Pro here, on my MacBook Pro, and on all of my servers. And what you can do is, if you know what those keys are, you can save those keys inside services like GitHub and Git Lab and things of that nature. So when you go to pull things, instead of having to type your password every single time, basically what you do is it uses the keys and it says, hey, I see you have this public key. It's going to compare on GitLab or GitHub. Do I have access to this public key? Yes, I do. And it's going to allow that communication, 100% secure as well. So that's really cool. I will show you how to do that. Obviously, these are my live production keys. So when I go to paste those keys into place, I am going to have to unshare my screen because I don't want those broadcast to the world, because then that would obviously negate my security. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how to set this stuff up. I wasn't planning on doing this today, but I guess it's kind of to your benefit, I guess. Kind of fun stuff. Interesting. So inside GitLab, GitHub, we're going to go into my settings. We're going to go into security. Okay. And, oh, no, shoot. I kind of forget where GitHub is it deployment keys? Okay. So this is where we're going to do. So inside your repository, you go to deploy keys, and you're going to type in, so this is going to be, my server. That's just a name. It doesn't matter. And what I can do is I'm going to get my public key for my server. Okay. And I'll show you how to access that. Okay. And then I'm just going to paste it in here and say add key. Okay. So I'm going to move this off to the side really quick. I'm on my server. We're going to go to my home folder, which is Home J Workman. And there is a secret folder. Now, this secret folder exists on your Mac as well, because your Mac is running Linux. So we can go to .ssh. Okay. And if we look inside this folder, you'll see that there are some files here. Okay. And this id_rsa.pub, that's the one you're going to get the contents of that. Okay. And you're going to paste it into GitHub. Okay. Now, in order to generate those files, you would run the command called SSH keygen. Okay. I'm not going to run this right now because I already ran it, but basically you're going to run SSH keygen. And then you're going to answer some questions. It's going to generate these files for you. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my sharing really quick. And at this point, what I can do is I'm just going to copy the contents of that .pub file. And save that into my GitHub account. Boom. Okay. Let's go back. Okay. So now I have my deploy key set up in GitHub. And if we go back to GitHub, okay, and you go to clone, okay, what this will do is, so it'll do, we want to actually use SSH, and it will give you the actual URL that we want to clone. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into, where am I? Okay, we're going to go into websites, and I'm going to do git clone, and then boom. And then do you want to accept? Yes, I want to give authorization, and it's done. Oops, I needed to do, if we go into, you notice when you did a git clone, it basically moved it. It actually created a folder in aspecthq.com called aspecthq.com. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly move all the contents of that folder back. So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to do move star. Okay. Okay. So now, and then I'm going to delete aspect. Okay. Boom. Okay. So now, we did that git clone. It cloned everything down from GitHub. And I now have, actually, let's go ahead. In theory, now, if I go to aspecthq.com, boom, there's our website. Oh, I didn't center text. I didn't center align that. Okay. So that was a lot of work to kind of get it set up, but now it's all gravy. I make changes, publish it, okay, push, and then pull. Okay. But now we need to set up that cron job. Okay. So we need to set up that cron job that will, whenever I push changes up to GitHub, okay, we want those changes to be automatically pulled down. Okay. So let's go ahead and that, if we go back into our project settings in GitHub and go to Webhooks, let's just edit this really quick. Say update so it tests it again. What I'm going to do, just for fun, I'm going to delete that. We're going to recreate it really quick. Add a webhook. Boom. Add. Boom. Okay. So yeah. So there we go. We got the little green check mark. So the delivery was successful. Okay. And just for fun, if we go into okay, now if we look at those files that we created, okay. So this, remember what it does is it creates something called it's going to create this file, home jworkman deploy hooks aspecthq.com deploy. Now this is outside. This folder is outside of my public HTML. It's outside of my web folder. Okay. And I did that on purpose. So let's see if we go back to my home. So now we are inside home Joe Workman. Okay. I actually needed to create this folder. It doesn't exist right now. So I'm going to create deploy hooks aspecthq.com. Okay. So now I have deploy hooks. And if we go into deploy hooks and look in there, we'll see that we have aspecthq.com. And if we do, if we look inside aspecthq.com, it's empty. Okay. So right now what we're going to do is let's go ahead and make a quick modification to our project. Wrap Weaver. Okay. Now I remember I changed that. I'm actually going to edit my publishing settings really quick, and I'm going to change the directory to where this is, because we changed it a little bit, and that's just going to be that one now. Boom. Go back here. Let's fix this text, right? We're going to go into this paragraph, and we're going to make it centered, and I'm going to publish. Boom. Okay. And then now what we need to do is we need to go to tower. Okay. Tower, notice the change. We're going to commit this and say centered text. Now what should happen? When I push this, because we configure that hook on GitHub, it will see that I did the push, and it should automatically hit the URL. And when that hits the URL, the file should be created inside this folder. Okay? If everything goes well, that's exactly what's going to happen. Fingers crossed. So I'm going to push this. It's thinking about it. Boom, it pushed. Okay, so it pushed that to GitHub. Fingers rolled. It should. Oh no. Interesting. Fun times, troubleshooting. Interesting. Why didn't that work? Okay, so if so request post file, what I'm going to do is let's test that this works. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to here, let's bring up transmit, something maybe a little bit more familiar to you guys, and I'm going to connect to my server here. We're going to go into websites, SSHKey.com. I'm gonna edit this file inline really quick, and we're gonna open it. Okay. So what I can do right now is I'm just gonna comment these files out, which basically means this file will get created anytime this gets pinged, just for fun. And what I'm gonna do is in this URL here, I'm gonna do deploy.php. Okay. So now, in theory, since anything that hits that will work. If we go into deploy hooks, aha, that did not work. Oh, I know why. Okay, we're stupid file permission issues. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we are going to do. I'm going to change the location of this file, and I'm actually going to change it to be websites/aspecthq.com/deploy hook. Okay, so the reason that didn't work is the way Unix works is that the web server is ran under a particular user, right? Most of the time it's a user called www-data. Okay. Obviously I'm logged in as Joe Workman. Now in my home folder, just as on your Mac as well, only I have access to my home folder. So when I tried to write this file into home J Workman deploy hooks, blah, blah, blah. Okay. It tried to create a file inside my, Joe Workman directory. But what I need to do is I need to create that file inside the public folder, where the website is hosted, where www.data actually has access to create new files. Okay. So what I can do is I'm just going to create a file here called home Joe Workman websites aspecthq.com deploy hook. Now, because this folder here is actually accessible by the process that runs the web server, it can create this deploy hook file. So we're going to call this deploy hook. So I'm going to go ahead, just for fun, I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to go ahead and run it. And actually, if we go into here, we refresh this. do is I'm just going to say file deploy hook. And what that will do is that will actually create, here we go. This is even simpler. It will create a deploy hook file in the same exact folder that this deploy PHP file is in. So let's go ahead and refresh that. Okay. If we refresh this, there it is. Okay. Whew. There we go. We're making progress. Okay. So now whenever we hit this URL, it's going to create that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to delete that file. And now what we need to do is I made these changes locally on the server. But what I'm going to have to do is we're going to save this in our repository. Okay. Don't save. Okay. Just going to save that there. Okay. Oh, this isn't the code. So remember inside Finder, we go into, remember this is where we're publishing. We're going to have to update this file, this deploy.php. Okay. So that's this file here. Paste. Okay. Okay. There we go. And we go to tower. And we're going to deploy this again. So remember, I made a quick change to this file. We're going to save it. Oops. I didn't put in my commit message. Duh. Fixed. Deploy. Okay. Enter. This is a new server setup. I have this server set up a little bit differently than how I have my existing one. So sorry for the troubles, but hopefully maybe you learned a little bit. Okay, so we pushed that new deploy file. Now, in order to get it on our server, we're going to have to, I'm going to have to, let's see, where am I? Websites, aspecthq.com. Okay, so here we are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a git pull. Oh, okay, so here's interesting. I did a git pull, but remember I actually changed that deploy.php file locally here, and Git saying, whoa, I can't do a pull because you have changes locally on the server. That's a no-no. So that's where we do this git reset dash hard head. Okay. And so basically I reset all the changes that I did to be the before any changes were made. That's what that command git reset does. And now I can do a git pull. And there we go. Okay. So now our deploy should work. Fun times. And actually it won't work if we do this because I put back in that post check. Okay. So let's go ahead and make another change. Oops. There we go. Here, what I'm gonna do is just something simple. I'm gonna paste in another paragraph, and we're gonna publish. Rudimentary change. Okay. Remember, we need to go to tower, and if tower, we go here and say changes, commit, push head. Fun times. Okay. So now that push is going up, okay, GitHub should have got it and it should have deployed. We're actually going to close that. We don't need GitHub anymore. Drum roll, but we should have a file called deploy hook here. And boom, we do. So here we have a deploy hook. And now what we need to do is we need to create that scheduled job that looks for this file. And when it finds this file, it's going to do basically the pull from GitHub. Okay. So I already have a version of that file on my server. Let's look at it really quick again. Because we are going to have to modify it slightly. Because I changed the directory where that file is located. So websites, and it was deploy-hook. Yeah, deploy-hook. Okay. And actually what I can do is, I mean, to be honest, in all the years I've actually used this workflow, I've never looked at these files. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say remove $hook. I'm not going to even save it. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to, so now what we're going to do is, so now what this script does is it has our hook. We're looking for this deploy hook.aspecthq.com. If it finds the hook, it's going to delete it, and then it's going to go into the directory and run those two commands that I just ran. It will do the reset, and then it will do the pull. Okay, so so that's exactly what this does. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to go. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a file here, and we're going to call it check deploy.sh. Okay, and that's the file. That's the same exact file I just copied and pasted from the Mac app, the VS Code. And I need to make that executable. So command plus X. Okay. So now I can execute that deploy script. So if we wanted to, what I can do is I'm just going to run this deploy.sh just for fun. And what we'll notice is it actually ran. So it found the deploy hook inside websites aspecthq.com. It removed it, and it did a pull from GitHub. Pretty cool, right? So yeah, pretty slick stuff right there. So if we go into websites and aspecthq.com, we'll see that deploy hook got removed, and the files got updated. If we look at the timestamps here, they have been updated. Okay, it's pretty cool. Let's schedule this job now. So now hopefully your host has a way of scheduling all of these jobs, these scripts actually, in your cPanel. I know there is. I'm going to use something on here called cron tab. So I'm going to do cron tab-e, and what I'm going to do is, let's see, cron tab run every minute. I think it's run every. Let me just get the cron tab for run every minute. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is we're going to do ******** /home/Joe Workman / oops, what was the name of that script? What did I call it? check deploy.sh. All right, so now I'm going to run this check deploy.sh every minute. And I think every minute's a little aggressive. I'm only doing that for this demo. I would do it at most like every 5 minutes. I think on my servers I do every 15. It doesn't really matter. I guess every 5 minutes is fine. Yeah, probably better if you want things updated a little bit more frequent. And it's not really, it's not a horrible thing if you run it every minute. I mean, that script's going to run like lickety split. If the file doesn't exist, it's going to do nothing. It's just going to exit. So it's not really that bad. Most hosts won't let you run stuff every minute though. So if you're scheduling jobs inside cPanel, chances are they limit to you. I would say maximum they'll let you run something is every 5 minutes. Some maybe only every 15. So yeah, keep an eye on that. So now that job's going to run every minute. And what we should do here, let's go ahead and let's look at Safari really quick. Here. We're going to go to aspecthq.com. Okay. So here I have aspecthq.com. And what we're going to do is now that we have everything, we're done. We have everything set up. And what we're going to do is I'm going to remove this second line because obviously we don't need it. So I'm going to remove this second line of "We are a cool company." We're going to publish that up to GitHub via Tower. And then hopefully within a minute, our website should be completely updated. Fingers crossed. Let's go ahead. Let's do it. Nervous. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to delete that. Save our project. We're going to publish it locally. Published it. We need to go into Tower. And in Tower, notice that we had changes. And we said, yep, we agree with these changes. Deleted paragraph. Okay. We're going to push this. Now, as soon as we push this, drum roll, that GitHub will see that we pushed. It will ping our deploy script. Our deploy script, we then have our deploy script will create that file, that deploy hook file. At that point, our cron job should run. That runs the script that checks for that file. And if it finds the file, it will remove it and then pull down all the changes. Whew. Seems crazy, but hopefully this is going to work. I guess a benefit of not removing it, probably what I should have done is, because I was removing that file, a benefit of not removing it and just moving it is actually, like you can actually see it run because you have validation that it actually did something, right? So maybe we can add that afterwards, but here, let's just gamble, see if it works already. And there, it worked. So we saw that line was removed. It all works. It's all magic, right? Pretty cool. That's pretty magical. Oops. And of course, dogs bark. Darn dogs. Okay. So, pretty exciting. I'm going to look at the chat box because I have been ignoring it pretty much the entire time. Hopefully you guys got some stuff out of that. Let's look at this chat box really quick, see if I can answer some questions. I wasn't sure. Yeah, for a while I wasn't sharing my screens. Sorry about that. Gaston says, even though my tutorial is clear, it seems complicated. Yes. Setting it up is complicated. But as you see from now on, once you get it set up, though, it's just a well-oiled machine, right? And it just kind of, I published it locally, pushed it up to Git, magically showed up on my server. Yes. And I warned you at the very beginning, this was technical. This is complicated. To get it set up, it is very complicated, but it is very interesting, right? And some benefits, if we ever wanted to roll back to a commit, here, let's actually do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to roll back the commit that we just made, and I'm going to put the two sentences back, right? So let's go ahead and do that really quick. So this just kind of shows us what we can do is, here I am in Tower. If I go to master, okay? So here is where I deleted the paragraph, okay? I'm going to revert this change right now. So I'm going to say revert, okay? So now it reverted that. I'm going to push this back up to my server. So I'm pushing these changes up to the server, and they're done. They're pushed. So in theory, right now, what's happening is GitHub got the push, and it's hitting my server. And we're going to... And look, it's already done. Right? So we have those two sentences back, right? So we do get benefits from Git, right? So it is a complicated setup, but once you have it set up, it's pretty simple. So yeah, sorry Gaston. This isn't, why is this better than RapidWeaver publishing? Well, I just kind of showed you the version control is very interesting, right? It also, some people are plagued with FTP problems or, issues with, whether or not things are getting published properly. Publishing locally is fast, right? Super fast. And then, yes, you get the benefit. Yes, you have to type in the commit message and commit, and then you push it up to GitHub, and then GitHub automatically pushes it down. So it's we're kind of going a roundabout way, but it works really well. And you get that version control history. So if you ever messed up and you just, oh man, whatever I published, how many times I've heard people say they published something and they didn't preview it, and they're like, oh shoot, I wish I just want to go back to what it was last week. Well, now you could just go to Git, revert to a previous version, push that back up, and your server's fixed, right? Some pretty cool stuff. Now Gaston says, I do that. He does version control basically by making changes and duplicating his RapidWeaver project file. Yeah, that's true. Now, what I didn't actually mention is you could throw your RapidWeaver project inside your GitHub repository as well, inside your Git repo. Okay. So basically, if you are, now I'd recommend creating a separate Git repository for your RapidWeaver project. Okay. So that way, your RapidWeaver project has its own repository, and your website, the actual exported website has a different one. There's a lot of reasons for that. And also, with RapidWeaver projects, if you throw that in Git, the changes are going to be very obscure. Okay. You cannot look at what it changed. You just have to kind of blindly accept the changes, and save them. Okay. But you can roll back to previous versions of projects. It works. So how do you get your RapidWeaver back to that then? I'm not understanding the question of that. Now, I do want to say, Joe, this is cool, but what about like testing? Like, this is kind of, let's say I want to test something out. How can I test it out? Now I'm not going to take the time to do that. That could be a whole nother live stream. Maybe I could do that next week. Is essentially what I would do is for a testing purposes, I'd create a test subdomain, like, I don't know, test.aspecthq.com. And at that point, what I would do is I would publish traditionally inside RapidWeaver to that domain. So then I could publish all I want to this test subdomain from RapidWeaver. And inside RapidWeaver, you can have multiple publishing destinations. So let me quickly show you what I mean by that. So essentially, inside RapidWeaver, let's go ahead and close out some of these other windows. Inside RapidWeaver, inside your publishing setup, okay. This is let's rename this to be production. Okay. What you can do is you could say add new destination, and then the destination here would be https testing.aspecthq.com. Username is Joe Workman, and password, who knows what that is. Okay. But you would set it up normally. Yeah, I know it doesn't work. So basically what you do here is you would say this is testing. Okay. And what's cool about this method is you would set up your testing server here to use SFTP or FTP, whatever is your default publishing mechanism. And then when you're happy with all the tests, what you do is you then publish to production, and then you do your whole Tower GitHub integration thing, right? So what's cool about that? Now, if you've never done this, you'll notice up here on the publishing button inside RapidWeaver, you now can swap between production and testing. Okay, so you can swap between different destinations. So again, when you're in testing, you could hit the publish button, and then at that point, it will publish up to your server. And then when you're happy with all of that, and you're happy with all the changes, and you think everything looks good, you swap that to production, and then you publish. And then what that would do is that'll publish locally to the local folder. At that point, then you use Tower or your Git client to push that up to the server and all that stuff we just learned today. So that's a pretty cool workflow. That's the workflow I plan on using for Weaver Space. So I'm going to have a test server that allows me to kind of have development and, test new things and try new layouts and stuff like that. And then when I'm happy, I will publish it to production. Then that will then version control it all and push it over to GitHub. So anyway, guys, I think that kind of wraps everything up. I don't see any other further questions. Again, this is definitely a difficult setup, right? Even I stumbled through a couple things, right, as we were doing it, getting things set up. And I'm sorry for the thing. I was trying to use GitLab. GitLab works a little bit differently than GitHub. I was experienced with how GitHub works. I was testing out GitLab. I thought it would be just as smooth. But I swapped over to GitHub, and luckily it was all smooth gravy after that. I will definitely post inside the show notes for this later on by the end of this week. I'll have the snippets to the scripts that I've used. So you'll have the PHP deploy script and the shell script that I use. I'll probably just publish them on GitHub so that you can access those really easily, so that you can use those in your setup. And I know I probably scared you guys with the terminal and how I use things. Unfortunately, I don't even have a web server that uses cPanel, which is what you guys use most likely. So you're gonna have to figure some of that out. So there's some legwork that you need to do on your own in order to figure out how to get the scheduled jobs and the Git integration and stuff like that from the cPanel. I know it's possible because I talked to Greg, especially on that podcast. Again, episode 28. You can get Greg's perspective on this from the traditional hosting side. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day. I hope you're enjoying all these live streams that we've been doing every week. I like them. I think they're fun. And I kind of like this one. I think today went relatively smooth. So anyway, take care. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Go out and make something great. And take care. Bye.